Capital tonight. The New York State Association of Counties just wrapped up its fall seminar, including selection of a new president. Oneida County Executive Anthony Picenti will be the organization's new leader. It's a one-year term. And amid growing pressure to cut costs, members also discussed ways to share services and find other efficiencies. With me to talk more about this, Executive Director Stephen Aquario, and with us from Syracuse is County Executive Picenti. Thank you both for being with me. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
It's our pleasure to be here.
And I just want to start with you, County Executive. Congratulations, because this is a nice honor.
Thank you very much.
It comes at a difficult time. I mean, counties, as you well know, have been squeezed for some time. You and I have had many discussions, particularly about Medicaid and the difficulty there and the difficulty with getting your payments from the state. And so I assume that's not as much of a problem as it had been. Is that right?
No, it's not. That seemed to have alleviated itself over the last couple years or few years. So it's I didn't have to withhold payments like I did some years ago. But we still have the pressures that counties face in terms of Medicaid and other mandated costs that we're trying to reduce, and that's what we do here at NYSAC, and that's why I'm pleased and proud to be the president this next year as we continue to tackle issues that are important to counties across New York State.
So, Steve, you and I have had many conversations. I mean, at this point, when you talk about consolidation and efficiencies and sharing services, the image that comes to my head is scrambling through the sofa cushions for spare change.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to be a flip about it, but it really is, without more efficiencies on the state level and a reduction of mandates, you guys really are scrambling to...
Well, there's essentially two forms of ways to fund government at the county level. It's sales tax and property tax. The economy has been relatively flat. The sales taxes, therefore, are flat. Our property taxes are now capped. So what's left for us to do is essentially cut. So we have to cut services, and the public is asking for more services and clamoring for the same services that we've been delivering. So it's a challenge. It has to be a cooperative effort between the state of New York and the local governments working together.
Well, Tony, I mean, no secret that the governor thinks there's too many governments. He's been talking about that since he was state attorney general. And when you talk about the squeeze, Steve, when you talk about the squeeze that local governments are under, do we not assume that that's actually by design, that what the governor is trying to do is force everybody into consolidation?
Well, I don't think you can force anybody into consolidation. I think we have to, we have to have the tools available to us on the county level to make shared services and certain areas of consolidation, feasible for towns and in the case of cities in terms of functions. I think it's going to be very hard, though, to eliminate whole units of government. And I think what we've been doing on the county level across the state is looking at areas of shared services, looking at areas of consolidation of function that are like within the cities, towns, villages, cities, however we can do it, and blend that in and reduce costs that way and see an economy of scale and savings across the board. But it's very difficult to just wipe out municipalities in that regard.
Right. Well, it's also interesting. There's a laundry list here of things that you addressed when you were getting together, 600 delegates. And Steve, emergency preparedness, age-friendly communities, preschool special education, workforce training, heroin epidemic, economic development opportunities, land banks. I mean, this is a wide array of stuff. But just now today, also, there's a new one, which is that you are supportive of the lawsuit that NYCLU, the New York Civil Liberties Union, has brought, challenging basically the state's failure to fund adequately the defense of low-income offenders, correct?
That's correct. Well, the New York counties are fighting to preserve the right to provide local services. That's what this fight in New York is all about. It's about how can local governments continue to be the government closest to the people, providing the services want and need. This is what they're asking us. This is why they elect us, to provide these services. So along comes the mandates. For the past 40, 50 years, the state has decided to continue to shift these mandates to the local tax base. We can't afford it anymore. We have a tax cap now. So today the counties are telling the state, here's another one of the problems that you have caused. You have asked us to pay for the poor, for the lawyers that represent them when they're accused of crimes. We've been doing it for 50 years. We can't do it any better with a tax cap. What do they expect us to do? The state should invest in this program and do the right thing.
County Executive, I can't remember, forgive me, that there's a handful of counties that are specifically targeted by that lawsuit. Oneida is or is not one of them?
They're not one of them.
They're not one of them. Okay.
We're not one of them.
So what is the situation in your county then? Effectively what happened here, and we've talked about it on the show, is that in order to comply with the U.S. Supreme Court's decision in Gideon, which says that all people, regardless of their ability to pay, have to have representation, the state said, okay, great. Counties, you pay for defenders because we don't want to create a statewide system because that's very expensive. And what you have is a sort of patchwork of representation, some of which is really not up to par, and people, as a result, are spending a lot of time in prison. So what is the situation in Oneida County?
Well, in Oneida it's no different. I mean, even though we're not a part of this, we still have two public defender offices on the civil side and criminal side that has to deal with indigent clients, and the caseload grows each and every day. In fact, if you look at the caseload on the public defender side, it's higher than that of the district attorney side. Wow. Which is really telling in terms of what we're facing here, in particular in Oneida County. And this is another area that really does, as Steve said, and as the counties have agreed and looked at, we get hit with all of these areas of, in particular on the judicial end. I mean, this is one. You know, in my county recently, we've been designated as one to have another new family court judge. We have to invest in infrastructure as well as staffing to maintain that office and to maintain that additional judgeship. That's a state mandate. That gets passed on to us. And that really is one of the other areas that we talked about at our meeting, that all of these different programs that are coming down, when they're getting expanded because of different caseloads and requirements that the state has, carry a great burden to county governments. And we can't keep maintaining that tax cap if all of these costs keep rising to the increments that they are.
Okay, but we also see that a judge does not side with NYSAC on this question. The teachers union challenged the cap, and the judge did not find in their favor. So I don't know how much recourse you have going forward, except, and this is a signature moment, a policy of the governor's, except to prevail upon the governor to change it, which I'm not sure that you can do.
And I don't necessarily think we want to change it. I think the focus on property taxes, reducing them, is the right message to the people of New York State. New York's property taxes are too high. The governor's trying to do something about them. We have been trying to do something about that for decades. We have to keep the focus on the property tax. How we get to a more permanent property tax reduction is the message from the counties.
Go ahead, Tony.
Right, and Liz, and Steve is absolutely right. As a county executive, I don't want to sit here and say I want to raise taxes. Nobody wants to do that, especially property taxes, because we know, as Steve said at the beginning, we have two forms of revenue. I mean, it's sales tax and property tax. And we don't want to keep hitting one area of citizenry for all of the expenses of county government that go on. But there has to be a balance. And if we are to maintain the cap, which we all want to do, we don't want that to go away. It's working. We're trying to make it work. We've done it. I've done it for the last 3 years. I have a budget I have to present in a few days to the county legislature. On my end, again, that will stay below the cap, hopefully even at zero. But when all of these added pressures come in and these percentages keep going out of whack, you do have to take a look and the state has to recognize that you can't keep making these cost shifts, because then what we have to do on our end, and we've said this numerous times on here before, is cut those programs that we need to deliver that are discretionary on the county side.
I do want to leave on a political note, if you don't mind. It is an election year, and County Executive, you're a Republican, as is Rob Astorino, who of course is challenging Governor Cuomo. You've had a little bit of a war of words with him. He basically said that there's no recovery in Utica, and he is trying to make the argument that the governor saying that New York's economy is coming back, particularly upstate, is in fact false. You disagree with him, clearly. I mean, increasingly, Rob Astorino is sort of alienating fellow Republicans. I don't understand what he's doing as a campaign sort of strategy, but have you settled your differences?
Well, I don't know if we settled our differences on this one. We haven't talked about this one, which was kind of discouraging. And I was very disappointed in his comments, and I made that known publicly, and I've said it for the last few days. you can't come into an area that you've only been to 3 or 4 times and talk about it in their